So there's two things that we need to be. That's creative and that's curious, because if you're not curious, you're not going to learn. And if you're not creative, you're not going to try something.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Welcome to the next episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers. And if you are listening or tuning in for the first time, a warm welcome to you. We've got over 160 episodes in our database, in our library of conversations. And if you have been watching us for some time, then a warm welcome back to you. If you could give us a rating or review, that would be much appreciated. That's going to help us continue to spread these conversations to the people that want or need to hear it. So, and the conversations that we have, it's all around organizations and how can they improve what they do through the power of business process management. And obviously the space of business process management, it's so broad. It touches so many different areas. And in today's conversation, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Rik Vera. Now, Rik has been on the show before some time ago, where we really focused on building a customer-centric organization and what that looks like. But Rik, if you haven't seen that episode, Rik is an author, a futurologist, a business philosopher, coach, and does many fantastic keynote presentations globally, all around the world. So very excited to have Rik back on the show. Rik, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm a fan of the show. I haven't listened to all 160, to be honest. There's not enough traffic jams, and there's other podcasts as well. But I'm a huge fan. And you're absolutely right. If you think about organizations, there's so many aspects that you can talk about. Luckily, there's not one, there's no silver bullet solution. If there were a silver bullet solution, have you ever thought about it? If you have a silver bullet solution, it's no longer a silver bullet solution, because then everybody is going to do it, and it's no longer a silver bullet.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Now, for today's conversation, Rik, I thought it would be great to focus the conversation around which is really comes from, as we were talking about before, comes from kind of the area that you're from. It's like the heart of innovation, or you're saying around the 1500s from a global perspective. It was the heart of innovation and where innovation was really thriving from. And I think that's a huge topic for large organizations in particular these days, is they need to be able to adapt and evolve. And I had someone else on the podcast some time ago, Michael Roseman, and he talked about if you're not creating the future, then you're trying to play catch up. You're trying to keep up with whoever else has created the future. So I think let's dive into this conversation. Start with us. Talk to us about innovation from an organizational perspective, and where do organizations really struggle when it comes to this topic?
I couldn't agree any more with what you just said about creating the future. In a long time ago, not that long ago, a client of 15 years ago, I started leading a company, and my problem was there that I had to 10x my turnover to make that company profitable in a red ocean, in an overcrowded market with a lot of overproduction and a lot of even declining demand. So a quite impossible, task, 10x in a impossible market. So but my conclusion was, okay, if we wait for the future to happen, I know what is going to happen. We're going to die. So we have to create our very own future. And in order to do that and to convince my management team, I took them to the movies. We went to see Back to the Future. And not because we wanted to talk about the future, but in 1985, because that's when the movie, that's the main story of the movie is 1985. In 1985, they flew back 30 years into the past, and they ended in 1955. And what you see is that in 1955, they were so afraid to change something in 1955 because they knew it would have consequences in 1985. So after that movie, I said to my people, look, this is what is going on. Today, you write the history of the future. So whatever you do today is going to impact the future, so your very own future. So we have to grab the opportunity to design our very own future. And I fully agree. And of course, we live in these fast-changing times. And it's I like to quote Jack Welch on this, that said, if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. That is bad news for many, many companies, because companies, especially larger organizations, but you see that in smaller organizations as well, have the tendency to slow down. And there's a number of reasons why they slow down. And they slow down while the world out there is speeding up. Today is going to be the slowest day for the rest of your life. Tomorrow will be faster, and the day after tomorrow will be even faster. That's something that we have to take for granted. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be faster and faster and faster. And companies have the tendency to slow down, which is a problem. Because if you listen to Jack Welch, then the end is near. Now, no company wants to end somewhere. So, yeah, they're all talking about innovation. Now, the reasons why companies slow down are pretty, obvious. First of all, you see that larger organizations, most people think, okay, a larger organization is a tanker, and we have to change the course of the tanker, but it takes a while before you can change the course of a tanker. But I don't even believe that most large organizations are a tanker. I wish they were a tanker, because then you could find the steering wheel and you could start to turn the steering wheel, and you would know that at some point it would start turning around. Okay? The problem with most larger organizations is that there is no steering wheel. There's so many departments. It seems that in the course of their existence, they have created so many departments. Every time there was an issue, they create a department. And they have created a department, and they have created geographies, and then they have to create another department to deal with that. And then they know they have to go into innovation, and then they create an innovation department. And they know they have to go into digitization, and they create a digital department. And they know they have to be more customer-centric, and then they create a customer centricity department. They know they have to build a community, and then they create a community building department, stuff like that. And instead of being this one solid tanker, they become this, I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of organized chaos. Chaos.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons. So there is a strange, link between the larger the organization, the more layers, the more departments, the slower it becomes, and the more hiding places for people to not take the pen in their hands and try to write the future. Why would you try it in a company like that? And there's so many hiding places in a company like that, because you can exist in that type of companies for 20 years without people even realizing that you're there. That's what you can do in that type of organizations. Now, smaller organizations have the tendency to try to copy the large ones, which is what they shouldn't do. So that's what you see. Now, they all realize they need to go into innovation. And what they do is what I love to call reactive innovation. And reactive innovation is not really innovation. It's catching up. And why is that? Because to do innovation, you have to have a strong innovational drive, not in the department, but in the DNA of the company.
You're right.
But that's difficult, because companies and people are not being designed for change. They are being designed to sustain what they do today, and to do tomorrow what they do today a little bit better, and to do the day after tomorrow what they're doing tomorrow. That's what companies do, and that's what people like to do. We are not designed, our brain is not designed for change. Our brain is designed to do today what you did yesterday. That's how people and companies are being organized. So the innovational drive in most companies is hardly existent. And then you have two negative forces that slow down innovation. The first is that natural resistance to change. And the second is that you don't see the compelling reason to change. People will only react to change when they have seen the change. And so by definition, companies and people do reactive innovation, reactive change. Now, we've always thought that innovation was this slow curve, this Gauss curve. You had the innovators, and then the early adopters, and then the early majority, and then the late majority. And you don't want to be a laggard, okay? That was clear. And so most companies told me, and still tell me, yeah, Rik, but we don't want to be the innovators. We are the early adopters. We sit on the beach and we see what happens, and then we're going to copy it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to be a good number 2 and number 3. That's what most companies tell me. But that's no longer the case, because if you look at innovation in this fluid, hyper-connected digital world, it's no longer a slow curve. It's a shark fin. It is a tsunami. It happens way faster than you can imagine. So if you sit there and wait until it happens to go and scale and copy and scale it, you're sitting duck. You're too late.
Right. Yeah.
Then reactive innovation starts to become crisis innovation. That's what you see in most companies. It's crisis innovation. They call it innovation, but it's crisis. It's catching up, and it's catching up because they're afraid that they're going to die because the compelling reason to change is so obvious.
Yes.
And then they end up in what I love to call the red box. Have you ever heard about the 3 boxes, Daniel?
I haven't. No.
It's an exercise. I am a lecturer, and I do quite a lot of, almost every week you will find me at London Business School, where I do lectures on innovation, on the day after tomorrow, and on future strategies. And I run a couple of exercises because I work with large organizations there for a day or even 2 days. So I have plenty of time not only to do the keynotes, but also to do a couple of exercises. One of the exercises I run there is the 3 boxes exercise. Okay, you're on the beach and you see the waves approaching your beach. You know, if you wait too long, some waves might become this big that they look like a tsunami. But if you surf those waves, then it's not a tsunami, it's just a great wave. Yeah. Right. So you have the choice. You sit on the beach and then it looks like a tsunami, and there's no way you can scale it. You can only scream and run, or you surf it. That's the choice that you have. Now, I use the 3 boxes methodology. The red box is the box where something ends up and it's a tsunami. It is going to impact your business and you missed it. So you have to scream and run. You have to do crisis innovation. Now, you can do crisis innovation once. It's a sprint. And companies can sprint pretty well in most of the cases. We've seen that during COVID-19. Okay, you run one sprint. But if you sprint, you get tired. So you can't sprint all the time. You run a sprint and then you think, okay, I'm there. But the very moment you're there, you're out of breath, you take a pause. Yeah.
Yes.
The world around you keeps moving.
Right.
See what happens? Okay, so you have to catch up another time. The second sprint is not as good as the first sprint. The third sprint is not as good as the second sprint. And after 3 or 4 sprints, you're really out of breath. So you have to take a longer pause.
Right.
And then the gap grows and grows and grows because the world out there is speeding up. You're slowing down. So we have to apply the Red Queen principle. Do you know the Red Queen? The Red Queen is a character out of Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
And I urge company and business leaders, okay, read Alice in Wonderland because it's a book about the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's what the Wonderland is. And there's this one character in Alice in Wonderland, the Red Queen. And the Red Queen says, in our world, she says, it takes all the running you can do to keep at the same place. That's exactly what companies need to do. Keep running. Because she says, if you want to get somewhere, you have to run twice as hard. And you can't run twice as hard all the time. So the only other thing that you can do is to keep running all the time. Not a sprint, but keep running, keep evolving all the time. So it needs to be part of your DNA. And that's why I say to companies, okay, the red box is what you call innovation. the catch-up innovation. You call that innovation. You put it in a department. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Get out of the box. Think out of the box. But in this case, it's not a black box. It's a red box. Think out of the red box. And then you have to have two other boxes. And the two other boxes are a green box and an orange box. And you see it coming green, orange, red. You want to avoid red. Okay. In the green box, you put, from time to time, get out of your daily business, stand up and overlook the ocean and watch which waves are approaching my beach.
Right.
And in the green box, you put those waves that you think, okay, I don't know whether it's going to become something. But instead of ignoring it, put it in the green box. And the green box is, I have to watch it closely. I don't have to do anything with it, but I'm going to watch it.
Right. Okay.
Companies should have been watching AI since 2010, 2012, not only now, but already like 10 years ago. But most companies kind of knew about it, but then ignored it. No, put it in the green box, watch it closely. At a certain moment, and for AI, that was not yesterday, but a couple of years ago, you start to realize, oh, that's going to get huge. That might become a real big wave. If I wait on the beach, it's going to look like a tsunami. I have to start to surf it. And then you move it from the green box into the orange box. And the orange box is, let's start to experiment with it. Let's start to try to find out if that technology, if that hype, if that new trend in society becomes something, we might turn it into a business model. And instead of waiting for others to turn it into a business model and then to go for reactive innovation, let's go for proactive innovation. We've seen the game changes. We know that the game might be changed. Instead of waiting for the game to be changed, let's start to change the game. And that means that in the orange box, you don't have a business case yet. The best way to kill innovation is to ask, what is the return on investment? Because you only know the return on investment when it's already in the red box. Because in the orange box, you're going to try to find out what is the return on investment while experimenting. So you don't start with what is my return on investment. You start experimenting, and then you might find out, okay, this might lead to return on investment. This might lead into a business model. And if you do that, and if you look around, and if you look at the companies that we really call innovative, think about Tesla, then it's an orange box type of company. They always come up with something that other people think about. Steve Jobs with the iPhone. They come up with things that people were not asking for. There was no market yet, but you create something and all of a sudden there is a market. Wow. Then you really write your very own future.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's great. And obviously there are many organizations out there I would assume are sitting in the red box. They're very reactionary. Yeah. Then looking at, as you're saying, like the Teslas of the world that are quite innovative, would you say that they are more often strongly led, like connected to a very strong leader? And have you seen an organization that is playing in the orange box, so very proactive innovation that doesn't necessarily tie directly to a very clear and strong leader?
I don't know whether, of course, when there is a strong leader, it helps. When that strong leader is very innovative, and talking about Elon Musk, he loves the future. He's got one problem with the future. He doesn't want to wait for the future. So he wants the future to be here today. So he has no other choice than to try to create the future. And that should be the mindset of every organization. And whether it's the leader that then spreads the mindset like a virus or spreads it top down like Elon Musk does, okay, take it or leave it, this is what we're going to do. Or whether it's part of the DNA, like in companies like Alibaba, for instance, that depends on the type of company, but it should be part of the DNA of the company. That reminds me of I think it was 2014, I visited Alibaba with a large European organization, and European headquarters, but a global real big top 500 player, and we visited Alibaba. We were in Shanghai, and we made a stop in Hangzhou to visit Alibaba. And because we were this huge European global organization, we were talking to the top of Alibaba. And at that moment, the CEO of that big European organization asked the top of Alibaba, can we see your innovation department? Can we see how you drive your innovation? And the guys at Alibaba said, we don't have an innovation department because innovation is what we do. You guys need an innovation department. And that was the first time that I heard talking about the Red Queen, because the guys referred to the Red Queen. They said, okay, we keep running all the time, but what you do is sprint after sprint after sprint. And you can never catch up with us because we keep running. And so innovation and that innovational drive should be part of the DNA. And whether it's about a strong leader that spreads the DNA, or is just part of how the company is being organized, and if it's organized for, and that is, we're talking about organizational structure, I think it should be organized like a human body. The human body is being built, first of all, to do what it did yesterday, but if necessary, to adapt to circumstances, and even do more. Darwin was wrong. Darwin said we adapt to the environment. That's nonsense. People don't adapt to the environment. We adapt the environment. And that's what companies should do. Not only adapt to the environment, but change the environment, adapt the environment. That's what companies should do. So listening to Darwin is reactive innovation. Being a human being is about being proactive. That is, you change your environment, you change your very own future. And that's what humans can do. So you should design a company for innovation like a human. And a human is, okay, what makes us human? And there's 5 building blocks. And every company has got those 5 building blocks. So instead of, organizing a company in the traditional way with departments and, layers and top and mid management and lower management and geographies, think about something else. First of all, every company, if I'm talking about a human, you've got your body. Your body need to be in good health. So the infrastructure of a company, what you've been doing in the past, that is your infrastructure. That's your body. Make sure it is, in good shape. So when I'm talking about, okay, you need to be an innovational company, that's not saying let's forget about everything from the past and let's forget about your heritage and operations is not as important as innovation. That's nonsense. It is important. So that's your body. That's your infrastructure. On top of that infrastructure, and that makes a company a better company, you have to have that centralized brain. A brain where you process information or data into information, turn that information into actionable insights, and then turn it into actions. Now, companies are afraid. Okay, they say, okay, when we create a centralized brain, then we create a waterhead. That's how most companies do it. And then we slow down again because then the waterhead is the most important and it takes all the resources. So we have to design it like, the octopus. An octopus has got a centralized brain, but it's only 20% of the brain. 80% of an octopus's brain is in its tentacles, in its arms. So every arm has got 10% of the brain. So the arms are kind independent. The centralized brain just makes sure that there is a memory and there is coordination between the decentralized brain. So it's not a matter of centralizing or decentralizing. Think about it like an octopus brain. But without that centralized brain, a minimum centralized brain where everything comes together, you become this uncontrollable tanker. So how do you control the tanker with all those departments? By having some kind of centralized brain. The centralized brain is about data and about data management. So how do you get those data? Because you need data to process data into information. The data are being collected by what I love to call sensors. All data entry points. So as a company, large companies, you have 2,000 people, 20,000 people, 100,000 people working for you. Make sure that they all are treated like sensors. They see the world, they feel the world, they bring in data. But what most companies do is they don't listen to their people. They don't listen to the data that come from the outside world. So you're not in tune with the outside world. So if you allow all your people to be sensors, like my fingers, my eyes, my ears, here you get the human body again. So my human body would be completely helpless without sensors. That's the same for companies. So if you want to be in tune with the outside world that's moving fast, you need to have sensors that sense what's happening in the outside world. If you want to be aware of green waves, you have to have the sensors that see the green waves coming. And if you want to know when a green wave turns into an orange wave, again, it senses. So it's your people. Now, so your people are data collecting machines.
True.
And how do you get those data into your centralized brain? By connectivity. And that's something that is out there. We live in this universe for the moment of hyper connectivity. For the first time in human history, we have free access to mass two-way communication. I can communicate to you, you can communicate to me. In the past, companies were like, broadcasting, one sender, many receivers, in and externally of the company, because companies needed to be organized top-down, because that was the only way you could spread the communication, centralized communication, and then spread it throughout the organization. But for the moment, there are tools that allow two-way communication, that allow hyperconnectivity. Okay, if you think about a brain, what makes this body work? It's a nervous system, and the nervous system is a highway of data transmission. So the data from the sensors from your people need to be able to travel and to travel to that centralized brain. Now, in the centralized brain, and in most companies that will be AI driven in no time. In the centralized brain, you process, activate, and turn this data into information, actionable information. Now, the actionable information, that is your interaction with the outside world, that's your innovation. Your innovation, how do I not only react to the outside world, but improve my very own environment and create something for me that is a safe harbor so that I can be there for the next 5 years and be there for the next 10 years and never be happy, but keep on moving. Okay. So you need to turn it into actions. You need to turn it into something that you do to impact the environment.
Yes.
And if you impact the environment, again, sense what you're doing, impacting the environment, because you learn from it. And so the information needs to travel using the same nervous system to the actions. And that's your people, that's your department, that is your innovation. And then you get a double flywheel. And that is what makes you in tune and faster. The double flywheel is this. If you have good interactions with the outside world, you collect a lot of data. If you collect a lot of data, you can feed those data to the platform. If the platform gets more data, it gets better. If the platform gets better, then if the centralized brain gets better, then it will turn that data into better information. Better information leads to better applications. Better applications lead to more data, leads to a better centralized brain. That's how we learn as human beings and keep learning as human beings. So there's two things that we need to be. That's creative and that's curious, because if you're not curious, you're not going to learn. And if you're not creative, you're not going to try something. So that's how companies should organize themselves with those 5 building blocks: an infrastructure, a nervous system, a centralized brain, applications, and that's what you need. That's what you need to become.
No, that is fantastic, and a lot to take in. I could imagine a lot of listeners are probably listening to this thinking, we don't have an innovative culture. We aren't sitting in the orange box. For a lot of them, we're not even sitting in the green box. We're sitting in the red box.
That's what happens when you run that exercise. The amazing all companies run that exercise on a regular basis. it's not the exercise. It is what happens when you run the exercise, because you get quite a lot of discussions. I get companies into London Business School, and then we run the exercise, and I divide them in 4 or 5 groups. First of all, you see the discussions within a group. Some people say this should be red box, and others say, no, this is still green box, or the other way around. And then they come up with, and I urge them to only put 3 elements in each box, 3 in the red box, 3 in the orange box, 3 in the green box, and then they have to give the feedback to each other. And the differences between the groups are from time to time flabbergasted. And there's groups that put, let's say, blockchain in the green box, and others say, no, blockchain, we've already completely missed it. It's red. And for me, there's no black and white. There's no good or wrong. It's a discussion about it.
Yes.
That is the starting point for being innovative.
Yes. No, that's fantastic. It is all about communication, and I think it's being able to engage the wider population of the organization into the conversation. As you were saying, we need our people to be sensors. They're in the position that they're in because they do good work, and they are in the best position to understand what's working well, what's not working well, and what are we sensing in this part of the business that oftentimes the C-level executives aren't aware. It's I think it was in the last couple of weeks there was a presentation I listened to about it was like the iceberg effect, where the senior leaders knew that they couldn't see below the surface, and they really only knew about 4% of the issues and the problems that were going on.
Okay, but they are supposed to be the centralized brain, but if the brain is not being fed by...
True, yes.
Yeah, so if it's not sensitive, how can it make sense?
Yes.
It should make sense, but it can only make sense when it's sensitive. And that sensitivity is what most companies miss.
Yes.
They still rely on that top-end management, but that top-end management, like you say, miss quite a lot of the information that they should have. And so it's about how do you organize your company so that whatever you call the center of your organization has got enough information. So it's sensitive enough about what's happening in the outside world and what's going to happen in the outside world so it can make sense. And when it makes sense, then it kind of impacts the outside world, but you never are the company that designs the future. You'll always only be part of, if it's not because you think, okay, I can be owning my own future, that you own your very own future. You can get a bigger impact on your future, but you're never on your own. There's always interaction between you and what happens in the outside world. So it's never a one-off. And I think that is the key to it all. Never assume that innovation is a one-off. Innovation should be a constant process, because every time you do something innovative, you have an impact on the environment changes, and so your environment changes. And so it's about the interaction between what you do and the environment and what you do. That is where the real innovational drive is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. Well, I'm sure you've inspired the audience today, the listeners. You've certainly inspired me. We need to be more creative. We need to be more curious. We need to create environments where people feel like they can bring their ideas and their opinions and their suggestions to the table. I think, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm sure organizations are going to benefit from it. Now, obviously, we're only able to squeeze so very little into a half-hour conversation. For those that want to, connect with you, maybe you've left people with some unanswered questions, or they're just interested to learn more about this topic that we're discussing. Where do they go next? How do they connect with you? What should they do?
They can go to my website. They can send me an email. It's very easy, rik@rikvera.com. There's only one of me. There's only one Rik Vera on the globe, and it's my real name. So I have to thank my mom and dad for that name. If you want to know more about that scheme I was talking about, that's what my book is all about. I've written a book, The Guide to the Ecosystem Economy, and that type of, How do you drive innovation, be constantly innovative? And how do you turn sensitivity into making sense and do that on a constant basis? That's the topic of my book.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, Rik, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and having this conversation. As I mentioned, you've inspired me. I'm sure you've inspired the audience. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Daniel, see you next time.